Hey guys, welcome to Dr. Cyberlogic. On my last video, I went over how to build an amazing computer for only $340. On this episode, we're going to be turning that amazing computer into an amazing 1080p gaming PC on a budget. So stay tuned. So today we're going to be staying in the $150 price range. So we're going to be comparing the new GTX 1650 that was released back in April to the RX 570, which has been out since 2017. Now both these cards are great cards for their price range. When GTX 550 was first announced, it's their budget card. It was announced as a budget card for budget 1080p gaming. The 570, when it was first released, it was probably more of their medium range card, but it stuck around for a while, and it's now considered a budget card, but it's a very good one. So now there's some differences between the two, some pros and cons for the GTX 1650, some pros and cons for the RX 570. So let's start getting into those and see which one comes out as the winner. So here we have the RX 570 on the left and the GTX 1650 on the right. I decided to choose both MSI for the comparison just to make it easier. Now, as you can tell with the cores, the RX 570 has it by a large margin. But on the flip side, you got a higher boost core clock on the GTX 1650. Now, we won't know if these balance each other out until we see benchmarks. One major difference you can see here from the stats sheets is going to be the memory. With the RX 570 you have 8 gigabytes of GDDR5, and on the 1650 you're half of that with 4 gigabytes. So that might be a big issue with the GTX 1650. So that's a big plus for the 570 side. Now here's another big one. A lot of people, when they want to build budget PCs, they want something that's good on power. So this is going to be a positive for the 1650 side. With the power consumption of the RX 570, you're going to need an 8-pin connector to the PSU to get power. For the GTX 1650, it draws its power directly from the PCIe port, so you don't need to connect it to the PSU. So power consumption is 150 watts on the 570 and the 75 watt on the 1650. So if you want a lower power bill, you're going to want to go with the 1650. So this is what really matters. It's the average frames per second. So when looking at ultra settings, which a lot of people, when they buy a graphics card for a computer, they want to play at the best quality they can for that resolution. So this is the best quality you can get for a 1080p resolution, and you're gonna see with this card, with both these cards, you get in the sweet spot between 30 frames per second and 60 frames per second, and then even some games like Doom, for example, which is made to run very quick, you get a very high frame rate. But now let's just say you want to play Metro Exodus, and that 31.5 frames per second isn't cutting it on the GTX 1650. So what you can do, change it over to drop it down to high settings, which will in turn increase your frame rate. So with the settings switched down to high instead of ultra, reducing some of those shadows, maybe turning down anti-aliasing a little bit, what you can get is a 66.5 frame rate on Metro Exodus, which is much better than it was before. And there's really not that much difference between ultra settings and high settings. Either way, you're better than playing on a console. So this card is great. Both these cards are great for 1080p. But which one would we choose? So as you saw with the charts I showed, there's not too much difference between the frames per second that you get on the RX 570 and the frames per second that you get on the 1650. I personally went with the RX 570, as you can see here, but I'll give you some of my reasons why. Now, let's go with the 1650 first. Some of the benefits: comes in a smaller form factor, much lighter, does not require power source from the PSU, gets its power directly from the PCIe port, as well as it consumes a lot less power, so you have a less energy bill, which are all great reasons. And you still get a similar performance as you do to the RX 570. Some of the benefits to get the 570 over the 1650 is you get 8 gigabytes of GDDR5 RAM instead of only 4 with the 1650. Now that makes this card a little bit more future-proof, and it also gets a little bit better frames per second on most games. Not enough to be noticeable. I'm talking about maybe 2-3 frames per second difference between the two cards. And some games you do get better frames on the 1650 depending on how it was developed and which card it was developed for. Now, one other benefit of getting the 570 over the 1650, the 570 has been out for a lot longer. So there are a lot of used 570s on eBay you can probably pick up for less than $100. So that's a big difference in price if you're willing to pick up a used card. Now, if you prefer buying new, you can pick up both cards for around $150 on Amazon. So the price difference for new is not that much. So that is my video. Personally, I chose the 570. This is running in my server and it's working really well, so I have no problems with it at all, but I am not currently gaming on that. But it's a great addition if you want a budget gaming PC for a very cheap price. What I mean by budget is I don't mean the cheapest you can get. You can go much cheaper than, for example, this card. For example, I have this Radeon card you can get for about $50 with 2 gigabytes of GDDR3 RAM in it. But this is much worse than using the integrated graphics in the Vega 8. So I would not go this cheap with a graphics card. But that was my video. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments below which card you think will make the best budget gaming graphics card. And please subscribe if you enjoyed my video. Hit that like button and you guys have a great day. Thank you.